Let's flow fam. Black again. And just gonna go live some of that you know what. Just gotta find my good friend, little good friend, new friend, Nikii Syme, and give you some of that Facebook Live. Yes, let us flow familia. Let's see if we can get her on here. Action!
We did it! So easy.
It is working. I love when things come together like that. I love it.
Just seamlessly, hey, so good. In flow.
Let's flow fam. Well, that's super psychedelic background you got right there.
Fuck, how good is it? Look.
That's actually my favorite colorway. It's like the Harlequin, the color of Harlequin kind of color, which is that oil spill kind of color, like that. I like that essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I saw it and was like, that I have to have. Yeah, it's beautiful. I love it.
So,
how you doing?
Really well. I'm a little bit physically exhausted. I've just been getting into bouldering, so I've just been like on the wall for a couple of hours.
Into what? Bouldering?
Bouldering, so climbing, rock climbing, in like starting indoors and making my way outdoors eventually. But it's all free soloing, so it's all free climbing. So it's not with leads, not with leads and ropes and stuff like that. Just to begin with, and it's really fun. It's really because I love physicality, I love movement, I love challenging, like solving problems, problem solving. So that's why I practice Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and that's why, yeah, I like to train the brain, play chess. But I like the physical. These are like chess, but with the mind and the body, you know.
Yeah, cool. Bouldering. I've never heard of it. Like, it's similar to rock climbing, but
It's very similar to rock climbing,
boulders.
just without the leads.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So it's just
Cool.
all just using your body and yourself. How's it all flowing in your world?
Oh, mate, I've had a massive month, like
Yeah,
huge month. Just topped off with a huge weekend. Like, I just feel like I've been reborn entirely. I'm still piecing it all together and yeah, trying to make sense of it all, or just feel it, like feel into it as much as I can and just trust in it. And yeah, it's huge, massive shifts, which is amazing. I love those
It's all
facing off with all the bullshit.
at the moment you're explaining it, I'm very kind of I don't know what it is. It's you could call it young, you could call it masculine, you could call it um, on the spectrum, whatever you want to call it. It's just like the concepts you just said are all like kind of big concepts, but I'm like, all right, what does it actually mean? What are the big shifts? What are the specifics? You know?
Yeah, so a lot of releasing of limiting stuff. I've faced off with heaps of inner wounding around sister wounds and inner child not being enough, comparison, like, oh, the comparison trap
Look,
stuff is
quickly,
just,
quickly define what sister wounds means because it's a term I hear bandied about a lot. But what
yeah.
does it specifically mean for you and for those who've never heard the term?
So sister wounds to me means programming and conditioning that I've been carrying that is not even necessarily mine. It can be ancestral, it can be from my mum or whatever, in regards to the way I feel, think, act with other women. So I had
Amen.
the comparison stuff. was really big for me, and I found that rearing its head again. Like, I remember one of my very first ever memories of when I was a kid. I think I was like 5. I was so young at school, and I had my best friend at school. And I remember we were running through, there was a new girl had come to school, and her and this new girl got on really, really well. And my first memory was jealousy. And I was like, I remember running through school, and I tripped over and fell. We were all together, the 3 of us, and I tripped over and fell, and the other 2 kept running. And I just remember thinking, why am I not enough? Like, why am I not good enough to be her best friend anymore? Why is this chick better? So this was at the age of 5. So obviously, like, it's stuff that's been programmed from years and years and years before. It's been carried through my mum and my grandmother, and then coming to me, and now I get to be the catalyst for change, which is amazing. So yeah, just facing off with that. And I thought I'd done all the work on that and released all of that until this month, probably actually about 6 weeks ago, where it really came up for me, and I had to make the decision to really go there and really face off and own it. Because I think a lot of the times it had been playing out in my life, but I hadn't actually owned it. And anytime someone would call me on it, I'd be like, nah, babe, like, it's all in your head. Like, nah, I'm good. I'm sweet as. Yeah, I'm good. There's nothing wrong with me. Not that there's ever anything wrong with me, but, you know. And yeah, this time, this beautiful woman called me on it, and I said, right, it's time for me to really face off with this. And I said, yes, that's exactly what's going on. And even in that itself.
Can I interrupt real quick? Just, is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, cool. Just on that note, I'm curious when I hear that you said a beautiful sister pulled you up on it, and you're like, and then you took note and you said, oh, that's right, and then it caused you to, what it sounds like for what you're telling me, it caused you to take a moment and go, actually, maybe I haven't dealt with it, or took another look at yourself. What was the difference in that interaction where she pulled you up on it and all the others didn't succeed in causing that effect in you to actually look at yourself and take a moment? Was it the way she went about it? Was it you were ready? What was the specifics going on there that was different to all the other times?
Yeah, great question. I think a bit of everything plays a part in it. The way that she went about it was really like vulnerable and raw and real. And I was definitely.
Can you give us an example of what that vulnerability, raw and real, looked like? Like, how did that feel for you, and what did the specifics? Because I imagine that there's other people in similar situation. They might be noticing it in other people, but they don't know how to go about it. Like, or they say something, but then it just has the adverse reaction. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I upset them, I hurt them, I pushed them away, and oh no, I didn't want that to happen. So there's specifics that people can maybe learn from to go, okay, cool. If you do it this way, it might be more helpful. You know?
Yeah, well, definitely. Firstly, like, on that point, how people respond to the way that we express ourselves is not us. It's not ours. It's up to them, and that's where we get to take real. Like, I'm huge on radical self-responsibility and owning our shit. So what she actually did was, when she broached it with me, she got on the like, we communicate through a walkie-talkie app, and she just jumped on and said, "Hey, babe, I've just noticed this. It's brought this up in me. I can relate because I used to be like XXX, and I'm just wondering if it's the same for you." So there wasn't any kind of finger pointing or blaming. It was just straight up, oh, this is what I just experienced and how it felt for me, and I'm just wondering if that's true for you, or if I'm completely, out of line and have no idea what I'm on about. Which is a really powerful way to communicate.
It was just a reflection. Hey, this is something I noticed, and it was a query as opposed to an accusation.
Absolutely, yeah. And anyone knows, like, if someone comes at you accusing you of something, you're just like, see ya, like, I'm out. Whereas if someone comes to you and says, hey, I just noticed this, is this right, or is this true? Then you get the opportunity. You don't feel attacked. And I never felt attacked. And in that, and her creating that kind of space to call me forward, allowed me to go, oh shit, she sees me. She actually sees, and she understands because she's been there. So she created this beautiful space where I felt safe enough to step into it and acknowledge it and own it and go, yeah, babe, that's exactly what's going on. And for me, it was like, realization that this had come up again. And I'm like,
Mm.
I'm done with this. It's time for me to let this go. So I was willing to go there.
So your willingness. And what's the difference there? Was there much difference there in terms of the other times where people have pulled you up on it? As they've done it the same way, but you weren't ready, or they've done it in a way that was a little bit more accusatory, or like making you wrong about it, or like what was the difference there?
To be honest, I can't remember intricate details about the other times it's come up. I just know that my response in the past has been, nah, babe, nah, not at all. And I'm sure it's been broached like in the same way that she has, or
In a
similar
loving
ways. And
way,
I'm
yeah.
sure there's been times where I've had like they've pointed finger at me. But that's where I think majority of it comes down to where we're at and our
The
willingness
readiness.
to actually lean into those shadows and face off with that dark stuff.
And what's changed in you that's helped you to reach that stage of that willingness to lean in? Because that's a stage where I've really got to as well, which is like understanding, really understanding. And we work with people all the time. And it's, when it's out there, it's a lot easier to go, yeah, just lean into the thing, be courageous. But then it comes to self. It's like, no, are we embodying that transmission? Are we embodying that,
Yeah.
those principles ourselves? Because I find that's one of the most powerful forms, or I guess the forms of transformation and change is when it is by transmission, is by this being the change. We hear about
Embodying
be
it.
the change you wish to see. Is like, if you're embodying that transmission, you don't even have to say much or do much. You just be around someone, and them being in that field of you who is embodying it will help facilitate those shifts that people are often looking for, who are attracted to you in the first place
Yeah. I've forgotten what the question was though. What was the question?
It was, what was the difference? What got you to the stage where you were ready?
Okay, yeah. Definitely the work I do, and that fact that I work with women to heal this stuff. And if I'm not willing to go there myself, how can I be teaching others to do that, or supporting and guiding others to do that? I'm a big one for embodying and being in the work. And I think too, like the older I've kind of been like growing in numbers, like the more time I spend on this planet, the more my ego is just kind of dropping away, and I'm not having that kind of hold on me anymore, where I'm more at a space, I guess, a time in my life where I'm really just wanting to let go of that stuff. I'm really ready to just release that stuff that just doesn't serve me anymore. And the work that I've done on myself to get me to this point. So this isn't just like a one-off. Like, I've been doing personal development work since I was fucking 17. And I believe it's always a process. We're constantly in the process. We're constantly in the play of personal development. And yeah, you get exactly what you're ready for at the time that you're ready for it. And yeah, it just felt like it was really time for it to go.
Beautiful. And that's exactly what, the title of the talk is, the deepening into self-love, that trust, and trusting in flow, and deepening into that trust and deepening into the flow. They all kind of meet one another, like all these concepts like self-love, trust, and flow. They're almost interchangeable in ways like, the act of self-love will generate a lot of just behaviors that are pro-life and for you, for
Yeah.
self, for life. And the trust, without trust, if we don't trust ourselves, it's going to be difficult to open up to our own self-love. I know that if I don't trust someone or something, I feel closed and contracting. And if I have a deep level of trust in myself, and that's, I feel, one of the most powerful, I guess, actions we can take, but also one of the most powerful forms of self-love is like really focusing on our self-esteem, and developing a strong self-esteem. And for me, that comes down to integrity, and if we are out integrity, like if we don't do the things we say we're going to do, if we don't follow through on ideas that we have or start things, if that really it gives us a full kind of damages our self-esteem. It's like damages our ability to trust ourselves. For me, having that deep level of trust where if I have an intention and then I do it, if I don't follow through on something, it damages my self-esteem. And that is something that I understand as like it's the what is the I think it was Nathaniel Brandon. He says it's the immune system of the soul, is the self-esteem. You know,
Mm.
so having a healthy self-esteem and really, turning up for ourselves and, really having that level of like ability to deposit into the trust bank account of ourselves,
Mm.
the more that we follow through and deepen our integrity, the more we can trust ourselves. And it's like, all right, cool, I do follow through. How many times it's like, how over the years for myself, it's been like, how come I know the thing, but I don't do the thing? And this,
Ah. Mm.
when that comes up, it's like, well, if I don't do the thing, I'm damaging my self-esteem. Is one of the least uh, beneficial. It's one of the most detrimental actions we can do is not follow through on the
Mm.
things we say we can do, both for
Mm.
ourselves, and it starts with ourselves. All right, I'm going to get up and exercise, or I'm going to do X, Y, whatever it might be.
Mm.
If you don't, you're damaging. So it's so bad for you. And it's a lot. This is what comes down to the concept of, life becomes easy when we do what's hard. The more we
Mm-hmm.
do the easy thing, the easy way out, the comfortable thing, life actually gets harder because you develop this lack of trust in yourself, and and that is a detrimental act. There's this
Mm.
concept of uh, one of my good friends, Johnny Saporno. He says that self deceit is the root of all evil. And it's like
Mm.
this is I believe it very much, but I also believe that uh, the opposite is also true. That self honesty, self responsibility is the root of all love. The root of all self-love, and it comes back to that. And I feel that's that marriage of the self-love, the trust, and that when you deepen into that, life becomes easy, life becomes flowful. That's what
Yeah.
I've experienced anyway.
Yeah, definitely. And especially like touching on that self responsibility is that when you own all of your shit, the light, the dark, the good, the bad, whatever, it actually
Mm.
creates more freedom in your life. And I think people have this idea that, oh my God, if I own that and face up to it, like face up to that stuff, then
I'm a
it's going
bad
to create
person.
more chaos in my life. It's
Mm.
the opposite. Like, I've never felt more liberated and free in my life than I do now. And I own fucking everything. Like, oh, look, I shouldn't say that. Like, probably, I'm sure there's stuff that there's still like kind of lingering
The,
back there that
the
I'm not
stuff, the stuff
owning.
we
But
don't know that we don't know, right?
exactly. And the stuff that I'm aware of, I own. So that in itself has been a massive game changer for me personally, in that it gives you back your power, because then,
Mm.
the only person that we have any control over is ourselves and the way that we show up. And we're the only person that we have the power to change. We can't change others. So when you step into that space, you feel immense power, because you're like, wow, I actually get to choose. I get to choose how my life plays out and how I play
Mm.
out my life. And it's amazing. And so many, it's such a simple thing that so many people don't
Claim.
understand or claim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah. Which is so powerful. We're all
It
seeking,
is.
like
It's a bit
seeking
of a
out, out,
switch,
out
right?
for all this stuff.
It's a bit of a switch, and that's why I feel like all relationship or other, any interaction with other is a really powerful place to look at. Everyone's, especially family. Family's going to bring that big mirror to you. The people who
Trigger,
piss you off
trigger,
the most,
trigger.
people who piss you off the most, they're going to let and they feel comfortable with, because it's like, well, I kind of have to love you, kind of thing. I have to, put myself there. There's a lot of that going on. It's like,
But they're
well,
your greatest gift as well.
that's what I'm saying. So it's like those
Mm.
people who can be really real with you and really raw. Like I have utmost gratitude. I used to kind of get um the easiest way I can put this is butt hurt. I used to get really butt hurt and pissed off about like
Yeah.
if someone would like show me my shit, and that switched over the past few years to being really grateful. It's like, well,
Yeah.
oh, you're showing me my
Thank
shit. I don't want to
you.
look at it. And I've worked so hard to not look at this shit. And why are you bringing me this shit up? And
Yeah.
and it's like, well, I know this shit. You think I don't know? I'm like, that's why I don't want to look at it. So it's like, if they
Yeah.
bring it up now I'm like, thank you so much. It's like, I
Mm,
really have utmost gratitude, and I'm bringing more of those people into my life that can be really real with me, and I'm opening up more of
definitely.
those conversations. And over the years, over the past few years in particular, I've been really looking to, it's deepening. It is deepening into this self-awareness, looking at all areas. And I've done things like sent out questionnaires, like 20 questions to like to 20 different people. What are my 5 biggest strengths? What are my 5 biggest weaknesses? What are my blind spots? How do you feel around me? What's the worst thing I've ever done? What should I never do? What should I always do? All of this sorts of stuff. I have actually implemented, and then I take this feedback, without being butthurt, but welcoming it. And I'm super grateful for these people who take the time to actually go, well, this, and this,
Yeah.
this, and it's like, well, I take the hit and I go, cool. Now I don't make it personal about myself anymore. It's just like, well, I just look at it as feedback and how I can
Yeah.
then implement it to bring about more of the results I do want and less of the results I don't.
Absolutely. And you get to choose as well what you take on board from that stuff. Like on the weekend, there was a guy there. Fuck, he triggered me to fuckery. And I remember because we had to do one exercise where we had to choose people for, I can't go into it too much detail because we're not supposed to talk about it too much, but we had to choose people to take on a ship with us. And he didn't choose me. And I went up to him, and then at the end of the thing, they were like, go up to 3 people who chose you and ask them why, and then go up to 3 people who didn't choose you and ask them why. And I went up to him because he'd been triggering me since day one. I was like, oh, I've got to go and ask this guy. And what he said to me, I was just listening to it, and I could feel like my body just going, and all I was allowed to, all I said was thank you and walked away. And just sat with that for a while and went, okay, what is in there that gets to be looked at? What is in there that gets to be healed, now that's really he's triggering? And I went into it, and I faced off with it, and kind of worked through it. And then eventually, like yesterday, sent him a voice message and thanked him, said, you triggered the fuck out of me, and I really wanted to punch you in the face on several occasions. And I'm really grateful to you for that, because you showed me where I still got to, heal and work through some shit. So thank you. He was like, yeah, sweet, no problem. Happy to be that person for you. I was like, yeah. Whereas in the past, I would have just gone like, you're a dickhead, like, fuck off. Like, who the fuck is this guy? So it is, every time we're triggered, it's such a beautiful opportunity for us to go inward and be like, okay, so, because it's us. It's nothing to do with them. It's all us. And that's where that radical responsibility comes in as well.
100%. Yeva says, it's always good to look at your shit. 100%. It's like, what's
Oh,
going
yeah.
on the inside? What's going on the inside? You've done the spiral, yeah? You've completed the spiral with Ellie, was it? How do you find, because we're talking about looking at your shit, clearing your shit.
Yeah.
How was that experience for you? I've taken tons of people through spiral. Everyone has this kind of different experience, but what was your kind of relationship with your shit, those unconscious conditionings, and your feelings, emotions, your automatic patterns, your emotions? What was your relationship with that during spiral and now as a post?
I think that was probably the start of some massive shifts. Prior to that, I was still hanging out a lot in ego, and I went through it, and I remember really enjoying the process, but I felt a little bit disconnected from it. And I'm not sure if that was just a timing thing, or like there was definitely breakthroughs in it. But I also had a very young child and another very young child, and I just don't feel like I was as possibly as present with the process that I could have been. So I'd really like to go back and do it again, because there was definitely parts of it where I was like, holy fuck. Or even just to read back through the paperwork again, just to kind of reconnect with it. And I'm sure that would bring that up. But there was definitely some really big stuff about worth and receiving came up for me. And of course, like where I was still very much hanging out on my ego, when like my heart chakra, I'm just wasn't open to really truly receiving love from, like I can receive love from my partner and my friends and family, but not from just kind of life in general. So there was some big shifts. But yeah, I feel like it's something that I would really like to go back and visit again.
For sure. Yeah,
purely
that's
just for timing.
well, that's like, that charging in. I feel that anyone who's willing to jump in on big processes like that are dealing with, these unconscious patterns and these emotions and, is emotional clearing, feeling, going into that feeling and feeling this stuff that just often just feels shit. Like there's
Mm.
no two ways about it. It feels crap or it feels painful or it feels not enjoyable or uncomfortable. And developing the habit of owning all of it, and developing the habit of, what we were talking about before, the courage, and being
Mm.
able to head toward and run toward rather than run away from, try to hide, put your head in the sand, go, all right, bring it on. And I feel
And I
is
think
a
that's
fast
really
track to
facing
growth.
off. Sorry.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I feel that's really like comes down to really being willing to face off with ego as well. I think that,
Mm,
well, I believe that when we're really presently living in ego, this stuff just kind of isn't even, it can't even touch the sides. It's when you're willing to
mm,
remove that mask and drop that barrier a bit and really kind of step out from behind the
mm,
ego, that's where you're going, okay, cool. I feel like I'm ready to really start, diving into clearing some shit.
And for you, just for those who don't know, tell the people who you are. And it's the opposite. I'm terrible at like introducing people. Hey Tracy, how you doing?
That's all right. I
Like
was like
I
straight
don't,
into the combo. It's all good.
yeah, I don't really do it. Like I was talking to someone today, and they're like, "Hey, I've been listening to your podcast. I realize that you don't introduce anyone." I'm like, it's kind of purposeful. I, I'm yeah, I just like, let's just have a chat, and if people are interested in like what we have to talk about, they'll go and search you, later. But I'm
Absolutely.
I'm curious for anyone who is maybe wondering who are you, and what do you get up to? Maybe it'd be nice to hear that. Even for myself, I barely know, so I'm more asking for myself as well.
Beautiful. So I'm a love coach. I work with women who to empower them in love so that they can attract in their soulmate relationship. So we go in and essentially clear the bullshit that's holding them back and keeping them stuck in shitty relationship patterns and attracting the wrong kind of guys, to be able to then step up and into, to be the container to be able to hold a really amazing relationship, and one that
Amazing.
serves them. It's really awesome. I
And
love it.
are there like, do you have like a core kind of system or like some basic principles that you always kind of come back to or find yourself repeating a lot around that?
It's always self connection, creating that
Mm,
self love, like building that foundation of self love, to then
mm,
create that beautiful feeling of wholeness within, to be able to
mm,
attract it from that space where there's no need, where there's no desperation. It's not scarcity. It's like, yeah, this is me and I'm fucking happy just the way I am. And if I never meet anyone, then that's awesome, to then attract in from that space.
I'm almost sensing,
Yeah,
if I'm almost sensing like a cup that isn't full, and like, so it's like filling the cup, and
definitely.
realizing that the cup is kind of can hold infinite amount, and you can just keep filling it. And the more that you fill it, it does overflow. And then it's like, well, actually, I don't need for anything, like you said. Uh, but is
But
there a level there, like I don't know, is there a deficiency in that kind of full cup that you notice that a lot of the people that you work with, or like, maybe a loss of remembering that there is a cup, or that we can be, that we can actually fill it from ourselves, or that kind of a common theme with those that you work with?
the
Or
main thing that is coming out is the real lack of self love, but also the real lack of knowing self, of knowing,
mm,
who they are, who
mm,
at a real core level, there's so much
mm,
conditioning and all these societal expectations that women take on. And I ask, so who are you when you're just being? And I often get this
mm,
like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, who are you when you're just being, when you remove the labels, when you're not a mum, you're not a daughter, you're not a sister, you're not an auntie, you're not a worker, you're not like all of these things. Who are you? And they're just like, I
what are you
have no
talking about?
idea. I'm like, well, let's start there, shall we? Let's
That's
get clear on
perfect.
that.
Yeah.
And then from there, it opens up a bit of Pandora's box, and we look at, values and getting into alignment with that stuff and what makes them happy, and then having really clear boundaries in place, and having negotiables and non-negotiables. So it's just this beautiful process that we go on together to get them to
Mm,
that place where they're not even thinking about a man. They're just like, yeah, fuck, my life is good and I'm doing this for me. And then add some from that space. Yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot of crossover because I started as a dating coach in
Did
2006. I think
you?
it was. Yeah. So,
Nice.
and then like, but I've always kind of I've I've never been like people will be like, tell me the technique. What do I do? What's the thing? The action I need to take? What's the magic pill I need to eat to get the result? You know, and it all kind of comes back to presence. Like I've realized it all comes back to being present in the moment now, mindfulness, and understanding those basic know thyself, be thyself, love thyself, those simple things. And I've always it's always been this, like people back in those days, like, what do I do? And then I'll start going on a philosophical rant. Like, who are you? What's your purpose? What do you stand for? You know what I mean? And they're like, what are you asking me these things for? I'm like, if you don't know this, then how are you going to interact with someone else? And how are you going to form a magnetism around yourself? Like this doesn't happen if you don't know these things. If you're not headed somewhere, if you don't know who you are, if you don't remember who you are,
If
and
you don't know
that's the
what you
purpose.
want, like,
Yeah, the
how
desires.
can you
And
get what you want?
if you don't know what you want, if that's one of the most powerful questions. What do I want? What do I
Yeah.
desire? And then there's the ability to communicate that, and um
I
so
want a
I think
man.
there's a
Okay, well,
crossover.
here's a man. Have a man. Take a man. But I know that's the thing. I think a lot of women think, and
I
a
want to
lot of
lose
women
weight.
will, yeah, okay, great, we'll go this way. The answer is always yes, yeah? Um, but that's the thing. Like, a lot of women think that they have to settle as well because they can't get what they deserve, or they can't set their standards high enough, or have these things in place that are like their non-negotiables. And I just go in and basically wipe that out and be like, well, that's a lot of bullshit, because of course you can have exactly what you want, exactly what you
100%.
want, and you get to ask for that as well without apologizing. It's not
Mm,
about just accepting the next guy that comes along that takes an interest in me, because what if there's no one else, or what if I say no to him and no one else comes along? When you're
mm,
stepping into that kind of thought process and that thinking, it's scarcity. It's like, well, just think about it. There are billions, and I mean
yeah,
billions, of guys in this
literally.
world, and you're worried that there's not one for you. Like, I'm sure there's
Mm,
millions of, like, there's plenty for you, trust me. And you get to kind of put yourself out there. But if you're allowing these people into your life that don't align with your values, that are not the guy that you want to be with, then you're just blocking yourself from receiving what's actually available to you
mm.
out of
And
fear.
what do you say to this concept of, I think you kind of touched on it earlier, but like just kind of coming up in my feel right now as I talk to you, like the, I want a man that's um, really loving and kind, or I want someone who's like a protector, like all of these kind of traits. I want someone who's disciplined, who's purpose driven, who's all of these traits you might have, for instance, got a list of traits. And then what do you say to this concept of like, well, you have to be willing to be able to embody that in yourself if you're going to
Fuck
attract.
yes.
Yeah,
Fuck yes. I had
yeah.
a call with a client the other day, and I was like, so what kind of guy do you want to be with? And she's like, oh, I want someone who's going to take me out for dinners, who's going to buy me flowers, and who's respectful and speaks really kindly to me. And I'm like, okay, cool. So when was the last time you took yourself out for dinner?
Yeah.
Never. When was the last time you bought yourself flowers? Never. Okay,
Mm,
so how often do you speak to yourself disrespectfully? All the time. Like, come
mm,
on. Like, if you want to attract that in, you've got to embody that. So her
mm,
challenge is, you are going to go out on a date by yourself in the next 2 weeks
mm,
sometime.
mm,
Because, oh, that's right, because it was her birthday coming up, and she was like, oh, I'm going to be alone. Like, I was going to stay with her ex, because she didn't want to be alone on her birthday because no one's going to take me out. I'm like, you take you out. That's what you're doing. You're going to book yourself into a beautiful restaurant and take yourself out. And if someone offers to take you out, you're going to say no, because you've got a hot date with yourself.
yes.
That's what you get to do. Fucking treat
And
yourself the way
and
you want to be treated.
I'm getting goosebumps as you talk about it because I'm imagining that whole scenario. I'm getting that whole scenario, and then she's there taking herself out, and then the universe delivers this perfect man who's like, "What are you doing by yourself? I don't need you, but take my number for later." You know, like,
Yeah.
yeah,
And even if that doesn't happen, she's setting the container. She's creating the container,
yeah.
you've got to embody that stuff.
Well,
Definitely
we don't attract what we want. We attract what we are, right?
what we are. Hmm.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
it's a powerful concept that is so true. I know that when we're resonating at the frequency of that which we wish to, or that which we intend, or that which we wish to draw into our lives, that's when the magic happens.
Hmm.
Like every time, whether
Hmm.
we are conscious of it or not, that we
Hmm.
will attract that which we. It's just resonance, basic
Yeah,
physics. It's like scientifically factual.
absolutely. And the reflection, like the the kind of
Lawrence
love that
is
you
laughing.
receive back from
Lawrence is
others
laughing.
is the
What are
kind
you
of love
laughing?
that you
What are you
receive.
laughing for, Lawrence?
I can't see
Yeah.
comments.
Oh, you can't see it? Maybe swipe across
No.
to maybe that doesn't
Oh,
work.
then it wipes me out. Um, yeah, so I was just going to say the level of love that you receive from others is a direct reflection of the love that you give yourself.
Yeah, 100%. It's like, well, what are you? How are you? How? It's like definitely an invitation to have a look at self, right?
Mm.
Rather than blaming the world for this or that. And I think that's one of the least empowering positions to take is that woe is me, that victim, and what do you find is one of the fastest ways for you to recognize when you're in that, and what do you suggest to others when you're in the kind of, oh, like I'm powerless in this situation. I don't have a choice. Why is
Oh,
this happening to me? Thanks, Tracy.
to be honest, it's been a long time since I feel like I've been in that space. Um,
But I imagine you've worked with people like who have that, and like, is there like a switch that flicks? Is there like, oh, I do have the power? I know this for me. It's presence. It's like if you get into presence, you realize pretty quickly that you can choose anything.
yeah, definitely coming back to the now.
Mm.
I often find though that with working with like the clients that I've worked with so far, some of them have a really set, habitual thought belief pattern of, there's one that's what was she saying? There's no quality men out there. There's no good guys out there. I'm never going to find a good guy. And it's funny because every time she brings that up, I'm like, change the story, change the story, change the story. And it's that repetitive, it's that practice. And then one day you just see it in them and they go and they catch themselves. And that was a massive thing for me. It was that realizing that it's all just conditioning. It's all
Mm.
programming. And I'm the one in charge of, I'm the one that gets to choose if I continue that. But, and you get to practice. It's not something that shifts overnight. It's a practice. It's a practice. It's a practice. It's a continually bringing yourself back to present moment. It's continually
Mm.
observing your thoughts and catching when you are in that cycle, that shame cycle, guilt cycle, poor me cycle, victim mentality. Like
Mm.
really being aware of that and making that choice to stop it. Because people get stuck in that and go, I can't
Mm.
stop it. I can't stop it. Of course you fucking can. Of course you can
Well, yeah,
stop it.
you're doing it.
It's a choice. Yeah, yeah, exactly. You're thinking the negative ones. You can actually change that and think something that serves you. And yeah, I just feel like for me, it was definitely just that constant awareness, that willingness to be aware and to shift.
Mm.
Definitely.
And I
Yeah.
find probably for me the presence practice and the journaling and just that
The
time just to
meditation,
be just to
meditation.
there that meditation, any mindfulness practice where you get to actually stop and just
Mm,
observe and listen and pay attention
hmm.
rather than constantly like it's just literally pressing stop on the record player
Yeah.
and
And then allowing it to be continuing in the background, but not being in it. Just
yeah,
let
it's
it
just
be
like
there. You don't have to attach to that.
and having moments of mindfulness, having moments of all right, cool. I am not the thoughts.
Mm,
I am not the story. I am not what I am not, and because that is like, I am what I am. I am X, Y, Z. I am whatever it might be. Exhausted.
I
I am,
am. That's all it is. I
you
am.
know. And then it's like, well, how do you finish that sentence, right? And powerful,
You don't need
loving,
to.
kind, attractive, whatever it might be, you can start writing that story. And it's like literally you get to be the
Mm.
selector of what record is
Mm.
playing. You know, if there's a
Mm-hmm.
record playing, why don't you choose to put on a record that is empowering? Why don't you choose to put on a record that is funky, that is sexy, that is, you know, that is respectful,
Mm.
whatever it might be that you want to cultivate? Because that's
Mm.
the needle, the groove that's going to be getting. You know, the more we think something, the deeper the groove, you know, grooves engraves in our psyche. And this is what I love about the brain being so neuroplastic. You know, it's plastic, and we get to change the way the
Mm.
neurons fire. And it's the habits, it's the
Yes.
thoughts, it's the language that we use. And yeah, for me, it's like, well, you know, one of the things is environment. You know, it's thoughts in ourselves, it's health, what we put into our bodies, food wise, what we put into our bodies with what we're looking at, with our books, the media stuff, what we're, you know, the thoughts I said, but the people we're around, what messages they're giving us as well. You know, if we're around people that are talking, you know, disrespectfully to, or putting us down, or projecting crap onto us, it's going to be very difficult to change those stories at the same time. So having the, enough of that self love to ensure that you're saying no to environments, people, language in your own mind uh, that isn't loving, you know, that, you know, so that then you can start trusting in. Because I believe when we're quiet and when we're still, that like our natural state is really joyful, blissful, calm, clear, and we know
Love.
exactly what's going on. You know?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. There's
So it's
so
like
much magic in the stillness, yet
allowing,
we're so like busy, 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 busy. You know, keeping ourselves distracted, keeping ourselves like, oh, if I've got a spare 5 minutes, I need to fill it with something. No, sit in the stillness and learn to hear yourself, learn to know what you sound like. And you can only do that in stillness. You can't do that. You get to the point where you can tap into that in the chaos, even if you're out, you know, and still like know what you sound like. But in the beginning, if you're wanting that, building that more, that beautiful connection with yourself, to try fully more, like more fully into self-love and knowing yourself, just sitting in silence for 5 to 10 minutes starting off, to just be still and